Welcome to this deep dive. We're all about getting you the core ideas from compelling sources, efficiently, but with some real insight too.
Glad to be here.
Today we're tackling something pretty fundamental, the role of trust, specifically between individuals and God.
Right. And the sources we're looking at really position trust not just as like a nice to have, but as absolutely essential.
Foundation.
Yeah, foundational is the word. So our goal here is to unpack why. Why is it presented as so critical? We'll dig into some examples, different angles from the texts.
Exactly. And right off the bat, one source uses this really striking metaphor. It says, trust is the oxygen love breathes.
Okay, whoa. Trust is the oxygen love breathes. Let's linger on that for a second. What's that really getting at in this divine context?
Well, it's saying, just like we physically need oxygen to live, this divine human relationship needs trust to, well, survive and thrive.
So without trust, the love just suffocates. That's the idea. It weakens, it gets strained, it can't really flourish. It's arguing that believing in God isn't enough. It's about having this deep confidence in his character, his intentions.
Gotcha. Love needs trust to even exist in this framework.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the core assertion.
And the sources jump right into an example, which is helpful. Abraham, tell us about that scene.
Okay, so picture this. Quiet desert night, stars out, Abraham's old, no kids. And then he gets this, well, frankly, unbelievable promise from God. You're going to be the father of many nations.
Right, which from a human standpoint sounds impossible. There's no roadmap, no evidence.
None whatsoever. But Abraham's reaction wasn't skepticism.
What did he do?
The text says he believed in the Lord and he counted it to him for righteousness. And it wasn't just like, okay, I guess so. It was this deep relational trust.
So more than just mental agreement, he was betting everything on God's word, essentially.
Exactly. Betting his future on God's character. And the text argues that act of trust, that reliance, is what opened the door for his connection, his communion with God.
So the trust itself becomes the bridge.
That's a good way to put it. It's the groundwork. God could connect with him on that trust.
Okay, so that's one side. But then the sources show us the flip side, right? The Israelites.
A completely different scenario. They're right at the edge of the promised land.
And these are people who've seen, well, everything. Miracles in Egypt, the sea parting, literal food falling from the sky every day.
You'd think their trust account would be overflowing, wouldn't you? They had undeniable, tangible proof of God's power, his care.
But that's not what happened when it came time to actually enter the land.
No. Their main reaction was fear. Doubt. They started questioning if God could actually deliver, or even if he wanted to, despite everything they'd already witnessed.
It's kind of baffling, all that evidence and still doubts.
It really is. And the text even includes this poignant question from God to Moses, something like, how long will these people provoke me? How long until they believe me after all the signs I've shown them?
Wow. What stands out to you there?
It's the direct link, isn't it? Between seeing the signs and believing, which here clearly means trusting. All the proof was there, but their lack of fundamental trust stopped them.
So the suspicion built walls instead of bridges.
Exactly. It created this distance, this alienation, even though God was right there providing for them constantly. It shows how powerfully distrust can block connection.
It's such a stark contrast. Abraham, no proof, trusts and connects. Israel, loads of proof, distrusts and pulls away.
It really makes you think about what this trust actually is. And the text is careful to say it's not about being naive or gullible.
Right. It's not blind faith in that sense.
No. The source describes it as, let me get the phrasing, seeing through the lens of God's unchanging character when circumstances are murky.
Okay, seeing through the lens of God's unchanging character. So it's about focusing on who God is, even when what is happening doesn't make sense.
But precisely. You ground yourself in God's nature, his promises, not just the confusing or scary stuff right in front of you, like trusting an expert pilot even in thick fog.
That reminds me of that verse from 2 Corinthians about looking at the unseen, not the seen.
Exactly. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen, it connects directly. Trust involves deliberately shifting your focus.
Prioritizing faith and God's character over just what you can immediately see or measure.
Right. Because if you only focus on the seen, the immediate, you limit your ability to trust in anything beyond your current understanding.
And if that trust isn't there or it wavers, what happens to things like prayer or worship? How does the text frame that?
It suggests they can become, well, the term uses hollow performances.
Hollow.
meaning
Right.
they're done out of duty, maybe even fear, but not genuine connection, not love. You're saying the words, going through the motions, but the heart isn't really in it because that foundational trust is missing.
Like reciting lines in a play you don't believe in.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. Now, there are a couple other examples in the sources that really drive this home, sometimes unexpectedly,
Yeah.
like the centurion.
Oh, that's a fascinating one. Here's this Roman soldier, an outsider, who just gets authority. He tells Jesus, essentially, look, just say the word. I know it'll be done.
He didn't even need Jesus to come to his house.
No. His trust in the sheer power of Jesus' word was absolute. It shows that profound trust can show up anywhere, you know? It wasn't tied to being part of the in-group.
And Jesus' reaction is pretty telling, isn't it?
It really is. He says, truly, I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. He marvels at it.
So this outsider showed a deeper trust than many who'd been following Jesus all along.
That's the implication. It underscores that trust isn't about your background or pedigree. It's about the posture of your heart, your willingness to rely on him.
Then in contrast, you have that really sad moment, Jesus looking over Jerusalem.
Yeah, the lament. It's not anger. The text presents it as deep sorrow.
He says something like, how often I wanted to gather you, like a hen gathers her chicks, but you aren't willing.
Exactly. And ye would not. That sorrow, the text suggests, comes directly from their distrust. They refused the closeness, the safety he was offering, because they fundamentally didn't trust him.
Wow. So distrust literally pushed away the offered love and protection.
Tragically, yes.
This really grounds the whole concept in relationship, doesn't it? And the sources make that connection explicit, comparing it to our human relationships.
Absolutely. Think about it. Friendships, marriage, family. What happens when trust breaks down there?
Everything gets shaky, suspicion creeps in, you misinterpret things.
Communication breaks down. It poisons the well. The text argues it's similar with the divine. When doubt takes root, maybe we misread unanswered prayers or periods of silence. We start questioning God's motives, his feelings towards us.
Like assuming a friend is mad when they're just busy.
Kind of, yeah. And the result, according to the text,
What does it lead to?
it calls it spiritual insecurity. This constant low-level anxiety, always second-guessing God's intentions, it stops us from really resting in that relationship, feeling secure in that love.
That sounds exhausting. But it's not necessarily a dead end, right? The sources talk about rebuilding trust.
Yes, thankfully, there's a sense of God's patience. And the story of Peter is key here.
After his denial, which was a huge breach of trust.
Massive. But when Jesus interacts with him afterward, it's not about condemnation. It's that repeated question, lovest thou me?
3 times.
3 times. And the focus there, the text suggests, is about rebuilding that relational trust. It wasn't a theology quiz. It was an invitation back into connection, reaffirming the bond.
So even big failures don't have to be the final word on trust.
Right. It can be intentionally rebuilt, affirmed.
So boiling it all down, what's the real core, the essence of this trust the texts are emphasizing? What does it let us do?
I think one of the most beautiful lines captures it. Trust invites us not merely to believe in God, but to believe God.
Ah, that's a crucial distinction. Believing in versus believing him.
It is. It's the difference between acknowledging a fact and actually resting your weight on it. It means resting in his promises, relying on his character, living confidently because you trust his love for you.
Which brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? The oxygen metaphor.
Exactly. Without that kind of trust, that deep reliance, love divine or human struggles, it dies on the vine, as one part puts it.
But with trust.
With trust, love can take risks. It can forgive. It can endure. The text concludes, with trust, love risks everything and gains even more.
A powerful summary. So the big takeaway from our deep dive today really seems to be that trust isn't just a nice sentiment in faith. It's presented here as the absolute bedrock, the foundation needed for that divine relationship to truly thrive, much like in our own lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And maybe for you listening, it's worth thinking about which of those stories hit home. Was it Abraham's leap of faith, Israel's hesitation despite the signs, the centurion's surprising confidence, or maybe Jesus' sadness over Jerusalem? Reflecting on how this whole principle of trust plays out in your own experience could be really illuminating. Definitely something to mull over.